Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. My guest today is Ryan Malone from the greater Seattle area. Ryan is the director of maintenance at Malone's Landscape, a commercial and residential landscape company, and he'll be moving into the COO role at the first of this year. His family-owned and run business is like so many other landscape companies. Ryan has had the amazing opportunity to work alongside his parents and his brother and their amazing team. Their team has grown tremendously through hard work and dedication, which has landed them on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies in America twice now, once in 2020 and again in 2022. Now, Ryan dropped out of college to join the family's design build and commercial maintenance landscape business. And since joining it, he's 8x'd the maintenance division. And what caught my eye about Ryan was that he is also an accomplished solo athlete, having completed multiple Mount Rainier summits, full distance Ironmans, and finishing 100-mile ultramarathons as well. Being a collegiate athlete prior to coming into the business world had a profound impact on him. And today's show will cover the relationship between extreme endurance sports and scaling up a business, as well as his journey and his path for growing this company forward. Ryan, welcome to the show today. Great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jonathan. I'm excited to be on, man. Followed you a lot and excited to be here.
Great. You know, I just love the crossover, and I can't wait till we get into the topic of talking about sports, athletics, solo endeavors that most people would say, like, Ryan, you're nuts. Why do you do that? And we're not going to go there. That's a chapter for another book, or, that they can read somewhere. Let's start with your journey into the business. Like, what inspired you to drop out of college and join your family's landscape business? That was a big decision at the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally. It was probably about a week of sitting on it and thinking about it. I had a cush lifestyle, living in the college town with my friends and all in one house. And I think it all came down to just, continuing that family name and that legacy. My parents have been doing it for 20 plus years since then. And I think it was really hard for me to not want to step into that. Although scary, like a lot of things I seem to like to do, that was kind of the attraction of the unknown. So just stepping into that and embracing the, not knowing what it was going to entail was great.
And some people might ask, well, were you like not interested? Were you not a school kind of a guy, not that into books? Or was the pull of the family business, or was there some event that happened that, had you catapult you from, 1 week later leaving college?
No, I think the biggest thing was I was playing collegiate athletics, baseball, to be more frank. But what led me to that was I was done with baseball, and so I was finishing my school part of that, and so it was a fifth year of college, trying to wrap up all my credits and whatnot. And so something that kind of drove that decision was, why do I need to keep paying for college? because I've already done these classes. I've already done some of the keystone classes and whatnot at my last school, and they didn't transfer to my new school. And that was kind of what drove me. I kind of got a little bit sour because of that.
Mm,
So, really, I didn't need to do that if I went into that avenue of working for yourself, right, or your
yep,
family.
yep,
So,
yep.
kind of bet on myself and the family business and the team that I was going to be joining instead of betting on a degree.
Good for you. I think that takes a lot of guts. And what I found is some of my best clients are people who actually dropped out of college, of high school, because what they were teaching in school wasn't necessarily what they needed to learn to advance themselves.
Right,
And you've probably heard the expression, Vern Harnish says it many times, leaders are learners. And so you can learn a lot about yourself and you can learn a lot about business through direct application and on the job
right.
training. And you probably learned a lot about yourself through these extreme sports. So we'll get into that.
Oh,
All right,
100%.
let's talk about growing the maintenance division by eightfold. That's a huge achievement. What time frame are we talking about, and what strategies or decisions were pivotal in driving that growth? Like what was behind that?
Right, good question. I would say there's a million different, things that go into the special mix of growing any business. And I think some of the biggest ones were, back when I joined in 2017, um, we had the foundation there, but no name in the maintenance division. We were kind of more known for our design build, been
Hmm.
around for a long time, but we really didn't have a big maintenance department. And one kind of contributing factor to that was the culture on that side of the business was pretty tough when I came in. And so, the big thing that I really instituted when I came in was taking that team sport
Right,
side of things and,
right.
and really thinking of it as a team from a sports background
That's
and
great.
and trying to get that culture fixed of everyone working together towards the same goal, towards the same vision, and that was producing quality maintenance landscape. So I really focused on getting the people what they needed, my team members what they needed. The equipment was run down. Things were kind of neglected, to say the least, on that side. The bread and butter of the company was for my parents has always been the design build, and so the maintenance came later with a partner, and they eventually bought that partner out, and it kind of just fluttered around for a couple of years, and really was kind of just declining, and so. But to kind of build off of that, once we kind of got the culture corrected, they understood that this young kid is not just a spoiled, owner's son. He
Right.
actually cares about us and wants to help us produce, at a quality high level. I really started to get the buy-in on the team as far as what we produce in the field. Um, we have, a tremendous amount of players and team members that came into the fold to really help us drive that growth and drive sales once we kind of corrected actually producing the work that we needed to produce. So that was kind of the key focus in the beginning was take care of my people first.
I think
And
that's
then
great, right? It starts with people. I mean, I once did a survey for a landscape business owner who was of your current size today, and just talking to their maintenance accounts, and I probably called 20 or 30 of their accounts. And I think the only thing I can remember, because this goes back 15 years or more, was when someone said, yeah, they're just like a mow, blow, and go. Uh, you know, and
right,
I was like, wow, that's not good. And that's not
right,
good from a cultural, like that doesn't make people feel good from a cultural standpoint. So I imagine, by the way, that you came into the landscape design build initially and then migrated into saw the weakness in the
right.
operations of the maintenance division,
Yeah.
which, and, for the listeners out there who don't understand, because a lot of people used to ask me, like, landscape companies, is that just like the guy who comes and blows your, and mows your lawn? I mean, I don't get it. That's a real business. And so, yes, if you've ever had a landscape installed, that's a very significant part of your business. And then maintenance is a very different business. It could be everything from medians of highways to schools and parks to large commercial office buildings, industrial parks, and even large residential properties, but they're very different. The value of a maintenance division is recurring revenue. So if you
Right.
are building a business that's going to be buyable, you want or sellable, really, from the perspective
Right.
of the seller, you want something that's got recurring revenue because that's predictable. Because otherwise, the design build people don't come back all that often. Um,
Right.
so you got that. You figured. I'm sure you understood all that as you were getting into the business. And so great stuff and a little background for our listeners.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the family business. Succession planning is a big topic in family businesses. And I imagine that you're going through some of them yourselves and our listeners will relate to them. What have been some of the biggest challenges in succession planning with your business? And how are you addressing them? Or how did you address them? Whichever you like. Talk about past
Right.
tense or current.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the hardest parts, if not the hardest part in a family owned and operated business. I'm sure everyone out there that's in the same position or has been in that position is either going through it or thinking about going through it or has gotten through the end of that tunnel. Um, but I think right now we're in the planning stage and really ramping up that thinking and the brainstorming of how we're gonna succeed this business. And I think the trickiest part is it's all three of my family members work in the business. So you've got my dad, my mom, and then my brother, Jake. And Jake came into the business probably about 2 years after I did. And he's, had tremendous success in the business and is now one of our top, design build, bid build salespeople. And so I think really trying to figure out the different strengths of each family member and get them in the right lane first is huge importance. And then moving forward into your succession planning, I think it gets really tricky, right? And I don't know if I've got the answer for that quite yet as we work through our succession planning. But it's really trying to, when your parents have been running this business for 30 plus years, it's their baby, right? And so they have to have the trust in not only myself and Jake, but also the team that is in place, right, for them to step away and see this thing continue to thrive and grow and not hit the dirt, right? So
Yep.
I think
Yep.
that's the hardest part is kind of getting them to a position where they have the trust and the feel to start letting go of their baby that they've had for so long and been through the '08 crash and all the different hard times to keep it going. And so I think that's the hardest thing.
Well put. I think that's the hardest thing as well,
Yeah.
because that is an intangible, kind of an emotional letting go, learning to release. Also, having something to go to, like instead of
Right.
coming to work every day, like what purpose do you have if now suddenly you're in your
Yeah.
60s, maybe your 70s, maybe you don't golf, maybe you don't travel a lot, maybe you are like that's where you derive your meaning from. So it's a very
Right.
difficult transition, I think, for a lot of people to let go of the baton, and then also the next generation has to prove themselves, as you just described. Like the trust has to be there, and probably what I find is having systems and processes in place that the parents can check in on the business remotely or can participate in meetings where they're looking at data and metrics and operational stuff that's almost like a scorecard,
Right.
like like we would follow a baseball game and know what's
Exactly.
going on, but we didn't have to play it, we didn't have to be there, we didn't have to coach it.
Yeah.
So
Keep the pulse.
excuse me, sorry, keep on the up keep on the pulse of what's going on. So
Exactly.
yeah. um any family disagreements that
There's, you know,
that you care to share that maybe are past tense that you
well,
navigated?
Yeah, I think that's always the common misnomer as
They're
well
never
out
past
there, that
tense.
people can't, that families, are going to fight and
Oh,
bicker
right.
and get into it. And I certainly know people that do have that situation. I would say ours is a little bit easier and a little bit more laid back than most, as all of us are in different divisions and working on different things, and we don't have a ton of overlap. But there's certainly times where it gets tough, it gets hard. You got to have hard conversations with the
Yeah.
family and
Yeah.
make hard decisions, or you have differing opinions, right? How Jake and I think about doing things, and how my parents, Jim and Debbie, might think of doing things. There's a new way and an old way, right? And kind of mixing those two together can be challenging sometimes. So it's kind of coming to the balance
Excuse
of
me.
that and figuring
Yeah.
out what's the best way to move forward.
Yeah, and I think the disagreements, a lot of disagreements in marital relationships are over values, they're over finances, um, they're over direction, the
Right.
speed of growth, maybe the speed of change.
Hmm.
Um, and so, disagreements over software or
Right.
over buying a piece of equipment, those are easy decisions.
Hmm.
Disagreements over buying your own real estate, that gets a little more difficult. You know,
Right.
disagreements over how are we being compensated. Now let's look at putting together a fair compensation plan. So you graduate through levels of difficulty, I think.
Yeah.
And I think you practice by making decisions around like easy, I don't want to call it low hanging fruit, but less difficult decisions that
Right.
build that muscle and build that ability to get into conflict and still have that love and trust for each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. The part that you've been waiting for, and me, and the guests that I've queued up, is the physical and mental resilience that it takes. Um, you've achieved some remarkable physical feats. How have these experiences shaped your mindset as a business leader?
Yeah, I think, getting into business, coming from the college side of things, I always had a good work ethic. You don't get to, play D1 baseball or D2 or D3 baseball or any college sport, without having a tremendous amount of work ethic. Um, but on the back end of that is you kind of take this obsession, in college, and then now you're in the workplace, and you kind of don't know, you kind of feel a little bit lost, unless you can get really, deep into that business and make that kind of your new identity. And I think that was kind of where I was at as I transferred straight into the business. Baseball's done. And I went I went right into mountaineering first. Then eventually I checked some boxes on that one, and really started getting that kind of that one foot in front of the other, mindset, because you're going to face challenges, you're going to face, obstacles and things that seem maybe impossible to overcome. And so that kind of started shaping that mindset for me. Although I already had kind of an edge with the college baseball, and then going further, I got a girlfriend and then a wife and now a 1.5 year old kid, and that really changed everything. And so over the last few years, I've kind of shifted from the, in a lot of people's minds, the dangerous mountaineering side of things, on the side of running the business, um, to now ultra athletic endeavors, which, might seem crazy to most people as well. So, but for me, it's more of building that grit muscle.
Hmm.
If I'm not doing those things and I'm not keeping my body in shape and I'm not staying sharp physically and mentally, I can't be the best I'm going to be for my team. And I know, to go from 8 million or 80 team members to 160 or 300, that's going to take a tremendous amount of grit and mental fortitude. And these outside endeavors, like running a 100-mile, ultra marathon, or doing a full distance Ironman, those things help me set a really large goal that seems incredibly scary and difficult, and sometimes feels impossible that you'll finish or do it. And it breaks that down into small bite-sized chunks. That's created a lot of discipline for me in my life, and that's transitioned straight into the business. I'm way more diligent with my time. If I've got to train 2 hours in a day, 3 hours in a day, I've only got that before work and after work time. I've got to be incredibly diligent with time management, and then be disciplined with my energy, right, and where it's going and who's sucking up that energy. So
Yeah.
I think it's transferred just tremendously into the business, and I know it's only going to help me further down the line, as well. So I think that's the biggest thing is the mental side of things is everything,
Yeah.
even in business.
Couple of comments on that. So, as you're describing the mountaineering, I'm picturing the homepage of my website, which has a person who's like in full mountaineering looking for the next peak,
Yep.
So that metaphor, I think, is great for, being able to sustain, to endure hardship, and to seeing the next big peak. But I'm also thinking that what's missing in that picture is a second picture of the team nature, which is
Mm-hmm.
what baseball is versus, a lot of mountaineering is just solo, and the 100
Right.
milers are just solo. Like, um, you know, which is different than extreme cycling, which is often done like as a team. People don't
Right.
understand those nuances, and so both of those uh, gave you like help you as you propel forward.
Yeah,
And one
100%.
one of my most or maybe most successful clients, who I think and I'll mention by name, Justin White of K&D
Mm-hmm.
Landscaping. Um, when like he talks all about today the importance of having a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, and how vision can really propel you. And I remember going back, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, 7 years ago, we sat and actually came up with this idea that a BHAG for him would be to be $30 million in revenue by 2030. And we actually then broke it down into like annual steps and then started looking at quarterly. But
Right.
there's two very different disciplines. So one is to map out the route, right? Like Alex Honnold, who climbed Yosemite, free climbed it, and did it with like a different route than other people had done. So I think he beat all time records.
Right.
There's one thing to map it out, but the other thing is just to have the vision
Right.
and to know that there's another place that you want to get to, and it's going to lift all people. So I'm
Right.
so impressed by the discipline that goes into that. And I imagine that you must demand, or by modeling and walking that walk, that you could demand some more discipline from your people, and that they want that. So can you,
Totally.
yeah, maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, sometimes it's, when I go accomplish something like that, it's I have to kind of reel myself back in because it's such a large goal, right? It's that BHAG that Justin talks about. It's that clear vision of where the end is, and then getting to it seems impossible, right? And then you get to the finish line, you get through it, all of a sudden my mind explodes in what I'm able to do and my abilities, to not quit and keep going even when it's incredibly painful. And so it's hard for me. I have to reel myself back in, not to come back to the meetings and just say, nope, sales goal, let's 2x it, 10x it. Like we can go way harder, right? And so I have to reel myself back in on some of those things. But I do know that if I can, lead with strength and discipline and things like that, that ultimately that's going to help our team, as well, right? And so that's a big one for me, is set that clear vision up front. Where are we going? What are we trying to do? What are the goals? That goal might seem incredibly big or hairy and nasty, but really, if you just, like you said, you got to break it down little by little. When I first told my family I was going to run 100 miles, they said, dude, there's no way. And I said,
Exactly right.
well, okay, well, I'll show you.
Yep.
And it was 10% increments every single week, right? And so it
Yeah.
kind of goes back to that Kaizen thing:
Yep.
improve 1% every day, every single day try to improve, and you'll get there, right?
Yeah.
It's those that
Yeah.
don't give up on it. So
Have you found anyone in your family or on your team that endeavors to do something that is a personal BHAG for them that's really large? Well, and that this could be anything from owning their own home to I mean, whatever it is for them, to some physical
right.
endurance, to excelling in at sales. It could be anything, right? Are you finding that it's having like it's rippling through the
I
culture in your
I think
family or in the yeah?
yeah, I think to a degree it does for sure. And I know it's, I've seen just, from my brother alone, him being kind of alongside and seeing, what's possible, mentally. He did his first marathon this year, and that was amazing, right? He's not a runner. He
Right.
doesn't like it. He doesn't want to do it. And he pushed himself to do a marathon, and same with my wife. And I think it trickles down, right? Like you said, and I want to continue to be a lot more open about these things within the company as well. Because I think it does, success breeds success, and discipline breeds discipline. So you kind of got to lead from the front.
Yep. So the second thing I learned in working with Justin and putting in that BHAG was the power of having some really clear purpose and driving that purpose through the organization. And so we came up with the idea of raise the bar, and it was like a lightning bolt in the meeting. I remember sitting in this planning session, and we came up with the concept of raising the bar, and it like took hold, and they've run with it. It's been like a fire. And I think what it's done is it's allowed them to elevate everyone, because the interesting thing was before we came up with that purpose, Justin was thinking that the purpose might be to help new immigrant or not yet immigrant employees become citizens and find a
Right.
path forward. And then we kind of realized like that didn't speak to all stakeholders in the business.
Right.
It just spoke to the employees. But raising the bar, I think, has spoken really significantly to their employees.
I
And there's
agree.
a real sense of ownership in their culture. And so I think you're maybe already have seen some of the same things happen in your business.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's certainly, getting something like that to where you've got the full buy-in of your entire team, that's behind it is only going to serve as such a great fuel source, for that rocket ship to take off. So I know
Exactly.
we're not perfect on our side, but I know as soon as we kind of really get that true purpose, like you said, raising the bar, whatever it may be, I know it's going to be really good for our team. And so I know that's something that I definitely need to work on getting a little bit more clarity on.
Yeah. Is there a vision going forward for the future of your family business, and where tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. We've got, a 1 year plan, 2 year plan, 3 year plan, all the way up to, 5, 10 years out. So,
Great.
but we certainly want to see, that legacy company. I want to be around, later when we have not just 3 to 5 people that have been here for 20 years plus. I'd love to see 30 people, 40 people that have been with us for 25 plus years, right? And so I think, some of that longevity, in a legacy company is something that's truly a goal of ours, and to build that legacy, right, and to stand the test of time and create a really amazing spot for people to work and have a career. I think one thing that, kind of hinting at Justin's, company and what they're doing really good is showing how great the landscape industry can be, right? It's not just a chuck in the truck anymore. It's a true career, to be outside and create and be a part of amazing outdoor spaces, right? And how much that affects, everyone who's around it, right? And so
Yes.
I think that's our biggest goal is to continue to work towards that legacy company that, really just creates a fantastic place to work for not just one generation, but hopefully multiple generations of team members.
I like that. And I also know at the same time that disruption in all of our industries is always nipping at our
Right.
heels, right? So AI, that's maybe you're seeing that being used more and more in your business.
For
I'm
sure.
using it almost daily. Obviously automation and robotics and, advanced mowing techniques and things that, will eliminate maybe some simple automated type tasks. You
Right.
know, they're not going to be able to do installation of landscapes. I don't see robots installing,
Right.
landscapes quite yet. But yeah, but we always have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of challenges, Ryan, for next generation leaders coming into a family business. Some are really hesitant in taking over the family business because they've never had the kind of drive or hunger or ambition. Maybe it's because things were handed to them. Maybe it's just because they were never encouraged. What advice might you give to other next generation leaders who are hesitant about joining, maybe even taking over the family business and really, to use the proverbial saying, grab the bull by the horns and
Right.
really go for a ride? Like, what would your pep talk be to those people?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we're in a time where we're going to have this bubble pop of all these folks retiring, right? And all these companies that have been in the family for years and years and years, they're going to either go away or be successed, right? And so you're either going to kill that family name in business, or you're going to keep it going, or it's going to be sold off to private equity or someone else, right?
Right. Yep.
And so I think a big thing to think about is I'm sure that business that your family has started and worked through for so long, or that your dad started or your mom started, I mean that has provided them with the life that they lived, right? And so that I'm incredibly grateful for my parents because we did live a pretty good childhood, right? And we were able to play baseball every weekend. We were able to do these things that some people can't. And so I think that was one thing that was kind of my jumping off point was I'm just going to let it go to nothing, right? I think it's almost it's like gravitational pull,
Hmm.
right? That
Hmm.
it is your name. It's Malone's Landscape, right? It's
Yep.
it's it's that family name and that lineage that I want to see for a long time. Um, and so I think they got to really think about that. It is incredibly difficult. It's not easy. It's going to test you in every way possible. But I think really think about the life that company has potentially helped you live, right? Getting to that point.
I think it's a lot of gratitude that needs to come into play
Yeah.
because what happens if you talk to family wealth advisors or, you know, most wealth managers who deal with, multi-generational family wealth, they'll use an often quoted phrase that it takes 3 generations to go from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, which
Hmm.
means that the shirt sleeves is the entrepreneur like bootstrapping it, getting it going. And by the third generation, they're now, frittering or spending the money away and not being that responsible. Um, I reflected my own family. My grandfather and his brothers and their father built a very large family business, a couple thousand employees,
Wow.
and it nobody in the third generation really wanted to join the business. They were always the in-laws. My dad, who was a son-in-law, my uncle, who was a son-in-law, they had significant roles in the company. But for some reason, success sort of brings with it a sense of complacency. And
Right.
so having the discipline and the drive, it's enough to do it in business or maybe in your family life or in sports or your mountaineering. But to combine those two, Ryan, is really seems unattainable, I would think, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And yet we can always do better. Everyone can always do better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's tricky. I don't have the silver bullet to help people make those decisions and think about it differently. I think it had a lot to do with how I was raised as well. And then I'd like, how you said shirts to shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves. One kind of chip on my shoulder that kind of helped me decide that was, and really dive in was my last year of college baseball. I talked about, a teammate of mine and my head coach that, you know, well, I'm not sure quite what I want to do yet, but I might go into real estate, or I might go back, or I might go into my family company, but we'll see. Like, I just don't know. And I can remember to this day, sitting at home plate doing the field work at the end of the day. And my coach says, Ryan, second generation owners, usually kill the business. And I'll forever remember that. Right. And so it was almost like a warning that wasn't a good route, which I think was ultimately gave me some fuel in the fire to really make this thing work and create a great place to work. So
I think that's a great source of inspiration,
yeah,
whether it's refuting someone's claim and you'll fail and
yeah,
proving them wrong, or recognizing that the family business is a great opportunity financially for one,
right,
right? It gives you much more job security than you're going to get in a non-family business.
right,
And while really successful family businesses probably should force their children to go work in industry or for a competitor or for something else that's going and then come after they have a few years of experience,
right.
that's really a valuable lesson.
Hmm.
Um, but I love my client base and fan base are people who are second generation
Right.
family businesses who really want to take their parents' dream and take it and 2 to 10x it. So
Yeah.
kudos to you.
100%.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some nuts and bolts practical stuff. Like I'm all in on operating systems, whether it's scaling up or EOS or just a basic OS, an operating system, which is basically a way of running your business. It's a way of managing your meetings, your metrics, your priorities, your annual business plan, visibility of all of that. It's a forum for and tools for solving problems, making your businesses run better. And, you know, I usually recommend a technology or, some sort of like a business operating system technology software. And then, of course, there's a whole lot of other technologies that are really useful, software applications in particular, for making your business better. Um, what's your experience in this area? Like, what have you guys done? What do you recommend to others?
Yeah, I think we've kind of got a little bit of a special mix of technology and things like that we make work for us.
Hmm.
And one of the more recent things that we've done as far as an operating system or anything like that is the key objectives, OKRs, right?
OKRs. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
And so that's kind of been our foundation for goal setting and achieving goals over the last, let's say, 3 years, I believe.
Hmm.
And so that's really, created a lot of good accountability and really getting that 90-day focus for us.
Hmm.
I've looked at EOS. I think EOS is amazing. I'd love to eventually probably switch to the EOS model.
Hmm.
I think the OKR model is very similar.
Very similar.
They
They're
call
John.
things
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
but
It's just the terminology,
similar.
but it's John. And I'm not even sure John Doerr was the venture capitalist who wrote the book on
Right.
OKRs, objectives and key results.
Yep.
But people who are looking at these different OS systems should understand that they're all like the Amazon River and they're like tributaries that go off one another. And so you know, but they're pretty much all so similar that we can
Right.
almost say they're the same.
Right. And I think it's so important, right? So getting that 90-day focus with your overall focus for the year, it again breaks down those big goals, those big aspirations into small bite-sized pieces,
Hmm.
and really drives that focus for that quarter. or for that half a year or for the full year. So we use that. We use, a number of different applications. Our estimating is all through a program that my mother has actually built over the last 20 years, right?
Wow.
And so it's a proprietary software that we've built for ourselves. So we've got a second version of that coming out here soon that we're super excited to see. And
That's
so
great.
between that and a couple different softwares, our CRM software is Service Autopilot. It's
Great.
gotten us to where we are now, and
Hmm.
I think we're getting to a point where we're kind of outgrowing that. But like I said, you got a great term for it. It's like the Amazon River with all these operating systems and all these programs that you can use, and they're all good in their own way. It's just figuring out which ones work best for your model, and I think that's the hardest part, right? I think I've demoed every software under the sun in the last 2 years, trying to figure out if we're ready to jump off, or
Yeah.
what's going to be the best next move for us. And like I said, it is hard. It's
Well,
there's almost too much information, too much overload to make a decision sometimes. So
what's interesting also is sometimes what's developed in-house then becomes another entrepreneurial business. So
right,
2.0 of your mom's software now becomes, okay, we're going to start selling this to other landscape or other
right.
design build or whatever it is. Um, so I don't imagine that's in the works quite yet, or maybe never,
Mm,
but um,
it's getting there.
depends on how big the family is also. If the, if
Right.
there's multiple family members and now they see an opportunity there, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. I want to wrap up with, balance, personal and professional balance. And I'm curious, you must have OKRs for your training as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I set more on completions and things like that, so it's actually a little less rigorous
hmm,
compared to the work side of things, but
of
it
course.
definitely is based on goals, and weekly, monthly, and
Right.
90-day goals to
Right.
get where I'm going.
Right. Because if you're going to run a race, you either, I remember the first time I did 100 mile, um, bike ride, and it was, okay, do you want to finish with like with gas in the tank, or do you want to be like just get across the finish line?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I always wanted to have gas in the tank. I'm sure you're the same guy. All right, so how do you balance this personal passion for extreme endurance challenges with the demands of running and growing a family business? Other people are probably wondering, does this guy get up at 4:30 in the morning like Dean Karnazes and do his run and then sit down at breakfast with his kids and then take them to school and then, and then coach their games afterwards? Like how does he balance this? What's your personal, like what's your either your morning or your afternoon or evening routine? Maybe tell us.
Yeah, I do a lot of that. So if I'm really in the heat of training and really having to ramp up, it's a lot of early mornings, and late evenings. I oftentimes will skip lunch. I'm eating on a phone call and doing things that are always um, utilizing my time to the best I can. And like I said, it's just time management and setting those drop dead. Hey, I'm going to be done. Get that power list done for the day, and I have to get this 1 hour session in. And so it's really dedicated around scheduling my time in the most efficient way possible. But it does consist of a lot of really early mornings, right? Landscapers are out and going
Of
early, and
course.
I've always been a proponent to, I start my day typically no later than 6:30 for work, right? And so
Right.
everything, if I'm going to do any training before that, it's an early wake up.
No
So
dark 30, as they say,
yeah,
right, in military.
yeah,
S-
100%.
Not for sissies.
No, and it's certainly not, and it's taught me a wealth of discipline for myself, because I've just I've been disciplined in different areas, but never had to put it all together at one time. And I think what helped me get there was that first Ironman, jumping off the ledge of, I've really, if I want to finish this thing, I've got to get better with my time. And so I kind of audited my time and really started finding gaps and holes, and where I could compress time and get the same amount done, in 2 hours that I would normally get done in 8 hours. Right. And so I've found a lot of way to focus, compress, and be very efficient.
Is there always a next event that you're training for when you finish the one that you do? Is that part of the discipline also?
Right now, I usually take a pretty good, sabbatical after the big event for the year. It's kind of my Misogi right now. Jesse Itzler kind of talks about a Misogi and your one event for the year, or one really, really challenging life event that will kind of put a staple on that year. So there, I try to do one really, really challenging type deal every year right now. And then I'll do little small things, in between. But usually after an event, after 100 miles, I took some pretty good time to let my body recover and just relax.
Give your body a rest.
Yeah.
Not like some extreme people who will do one of those Iron Cowboy. You might know him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He did an Ironman every day for 50 days in 50 states. And then he trailed his kids and his wife along. And like months or a year later, he couldn't remember a lot of it, which makes you wonder like what kind of state of mind he was in. So Ryan, this has been great having you on the show. Thanks for sharing your story. I really hope that your journey, what you're up to inspires other people. Folks, if you're thinking about accomplishing something that's bigger than what you've ever accomplished before, Ryan is a mere mortal and you can do it too. So, step up and see how it changes your life. And you see how when you change your life, you change your business as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. All right, folks, you know the drill. If you got some good value from this, please share it with other listeners. Give us a rating, a great rating on your podcast listening application of choice, and stay tuned for future episodes of our show. And don't forget to pick up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, A Guide to Driving Growth in Your Family's Business. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.